The New York Mets suffer a big loss to their starting rotation. Frankie Montas is down 6 to 8 weeks with the lat strain, weakening an already weak position for them in that starting rotation. Tonight, we also go through the 2025 season preview for the Kansas City Royals. That and much, much more ahead next here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Monday evening. We do have some news to report anyway. We'll start with the New York Mets making the decision that they're going to shut down their starting pitcher Frankie Montas, who they just agreed to a deal with this offseason for 6 to 8 weeks with a lat strain. Now, the Mets already had a weak starting rotation in the National League already. We already knew that was going to be a focus for them to try to address that rotation as the season went along. But obviously now they're going to have to address this, I think, a lot more urgently than they might have even expected to do so, even in their best dreams. So looking at this Mets rotation, they're probably going to have to put in Griffin Canning, either as their 5th or 6th starter at some point early on this year. I think Frankie Montas, once he does get healthy, will probably be able to stay healthy. This does have some recurring injury risk, of course, but I think Frankie Montas in general will be healthy, ready to go after that 2-month timetable. But we're talking about 2 months here. Yes, it's February. We're before opening day. But this is easily going to stretch into probably the month of April, maybe even into May, depending on how he really goes here. Now, this lat strain is expected to keep him out 6 to 8 weeks. That's the initial reports here. This thing could take longer, especially for him to rehab, those kinds of things. So kind of keep that in mind when you look at that 6 to 8 week time frame. It may take longer for him to ultimately be back at the major league level. They're going to have to build up his arm strength and all that in the minor leagues before they bring him up as well, because he hasn't really built up his arm strength yet, because they just started spring training. So, tough break for the Mets. They really needed that rotation to stick together, especially considering how devoid of top-end talent that they are. They don't really have a number one outside of Kodai Senga. I think Manaya has been a great option for them, but losing a guy like Frankie Montas, a really good 3rd, 4th option for them, ultimately is really going to sting for them. I wonder if they try to get a guy like Dylan Cease or somebody with some real potential in that starting rotation in there. Maybe they cycle around to Jordan Montgomery for the D-backs. That's another possibility as well. But I appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Welcome in Holly, Master Vinman, Steven. Appreciate you joining us once again. What about Vlad? there wasn't too much as far as headway for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Unfortunately, the extension talks ultimately have fizzled out. I doubt this thing gets done in the first couple of days of spring training. Remember, Vlad Jr. had ultimately set the deadline, a self-imposed deadline of the beginning of spring training for those contract negotiations. But sadly, there's not much progress to be reported here. Now, obviously, things could change in a heartbeat, but I've heard nothing but static coming out of that Blue Jays organization for basically the last 2.5 weeks now. They missed on the majority of their top targets this offseason. They did bring in Max Scherzer. Yay! They did bring in Anthony Santander. That was actually a good signing for them. But their long-term outlook, the stability of this organization is something to really be worried about going forward if you're a fan of the Toronto Blue Jays. Speaking of instability, let's look on the flip side of that coin. What about the most stable organizations? We'll start with some extensions that were disclosed today. First, we're going to start with the Kansas City Royals, the subject of our video later on this evening. They did extend their general manager, and they picked up the option for 2026 for their manager, Quatraro, I think is his name. Good. I think it's a good example for that organization to continue that continuity that they've had. The best success that they had, of course, came with Ned Yost. He's actually back a little bit here with the Royals over the last couple of weeks. Good to see him back in camp for them. But the heyday for the Royals is really when they were built on speed, defense, pitching, and hitting to contact. They didn't strike out a whole lot. So those, I think, are the blueprints for what this Royals team is hoping to be this year. If they can't get it done, I don't think they're going to make much noise. But I think this is going to be a team that's going to be able to hit. I think this is going to be a team that's going to be able to pitch. And I think they're going to be a team that's going to have great speed on the base paths with the addition of Jonathan India. But a lot of it is going to hinge on those guys at the top of the order, Bobby Witt, Jonathan India, among others, to really carry and set the tone for this team going forward. But that's kind of one of the more stable organizations, so good on them for getting the job done. A team that doesn't necessarily be associated with stability is looking for some. They decided to extend the contract for Mark Kotze, their head coach or their manager anyway. Good for them, I suppose. This is a team that's trying to build for the future. They certainly built their offense up, and he deserves some credit for that. But that pitching staff's going to have to prove its worth its salt this year. We'll see if they can get the job done. Another bit of news, like you say, their master man Trout is indeed moving to right field. Kind of an inevitable move here. We saw Mickey Moniak playing a lot in center over the last couple of years as well for the Los Angeles Angels. Plus, they're just trying to keep him healthy at this point. There's no reason to play an aging player like Mike Trout in center field in L.A. There's no real reason for it. Even in right field, I would be surprised if he plays more than 100 games in right field, even if he's fully healthy through the entirety of the season. I think they should be using the DH spot for him as to try to keep him healthy, and I think they will do so. But I just think he's a guy that's more injury prone at this point in his career. Not necessarily prone, that's not necessarily the right word. He gathers a lot of injuries rather quickly, significant injuries. So injury prone to me just means to me that you're more susceptible for repetitive injuries, that it's not necessarily something that's just a freak accident. Whereas Mike Trout, I think it's just one day it's this problem, another day it's that problem. And I hope Mike Trout stays healthy for all of us because he was once one of the best 3 players in the game, in my opinion. But I'd like to see him have a full healthy season once again and just see how good he really performs. Tim, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. 25 Mets predictions, 109 and 53 World Series champs. That's a lot of wins for that Mets organization. Do I think there's a chance they break 100? I do. I think there's a good chance they'll be above 90 wins. I think there's a good chance they're above 95 wins, but you got 2 really tough teams in that division. The Nationals are no slouch. The Marlins are a bit of a cakewalk. I will give you that one. But as far as the National League, this whole league is going to run through L.A. Whether they win, lose, or draw, L.A. is going to have a say in it no matter what happens. I think they're going to be a great team. 109 just seems like a little bit steep for what this team really has, especially considering their issues in the starting pitching right now for the Mets. It's kind of what we led our show off here with the injury to Frankie Montas. I think they'll add somebody via trade. I don't think there's a starter out there besides maybe an Andrew Heaney that could really give them the innings that they're looking for. But they don't have anybody on the free agent market that matches the description of a number 1. We'll see if they ultimately add one. Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you joining us once again. Really starting to think the Rangers bullpen will be okay. There are enough arms in spring training with Webb, Jackson, Barlow, Martin, and Garcia. Got to figure out 2 or 3 of them will be okay. I'm right there with you. I think they'll have some good middle relief options. I think they'll have some good setup options. My question is, and remains to be, that closer. I mean, they have some guys who have done it before. They brought in Joe Barlow, who was their closer at one point. Jackson's done it at one point or another. Former prospect of the Rangers was signed today. That's another bit of news in case you guys didn't pay attention or catch that one anyway, that Luke Jackson is back with the Texas Rangers. Good for them to be able to bring in another veteran arm to that bullpen, but he is not off of a great year either. So like I say, bullpens every year to me are very mercurial. One year they're up, another year they're down. I guess they're hoping for another up here for Luke Jackson. But as far as this bullpen goes, there's nobody that I point to in that bullpen and say, yep, he's our day one closer. Yep, he's the guy I want on day 162 to be our closer. Yep, he's the guy that's going to take the ball from me in Game 7 of World Series, bases loaded, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth. I don't necessarily trust any of those guys in that role. Now, one of them might grow into that role, absolutely, and I think that's what they're really banking on more than anything else as they try to string this bullpen together on a shoestring budget, and good on them for making the moves that they made over the last couple of days. But I think they're going to continue to try to scour this market to see if they can get somewhat of a high caliber, high-end closer. We'll see if they ultimately bring one in. Master Vinman, Michael, Cubs versus Rangers, 223. I know it's only spring training, but we'll have something to chat about. I agree. Tim, should the Mets trade Marte, McNeil, Beatty, Mauricio McGill, Sproat, Gilbert, and Cash the Padres for Cease, Salas, and Mayfield before opening day? No. You're not going to see that many pieces move this close to opening day, especially when it's that much major league talent. Also consider that the Padres are looking to shave salary, not add some salary there. So yes, while you say Cash is in that deal, and I understand Cohen's taken a lot of cash back on Scherzer's deal and Verlander's deal, he'd have to eat the entirety of Marte's deal, pretty much the majority of McNeil's deal, and then you get the couple of good young options there. But I think it's a bit of an overpay, honestly, for Cease, but for Salas included and Mayfield, I just don't think there's any way that type of a trade happens. Way too big of a trade. When you're getting this close to the start of the season, think small. Think one player for 2 prospects. That's about as big as you're going to get trades right now. Maybe 1-for-1 type of deals. Very, very rarely do you see a centerpiece of a trade with 3 or 4 prospects going back the other way, especially if there are major leaguers involved going back and forth between the two teams. Very rarely do you see those big type of deals. Now, am I saying that wouldn't be a great deal for it to happen? No, I'm just saying that just looking at the deal, just way too many moving parts. If you're hoping this deal would happen, we'll think more realistically. Think, hey, I want Dylan Cease. Okay, what would it take to get him? 1 or 2 prospects, done, packaged together, done. Hey, I want to get Salas, package it together, 1 or 2 prospects, done. You're not going to combine those pieces this close to spring training. It's just not going to happen. Now, would it be a best move overall for them? Possibly. But I don't think it's really worth debating when there are that many pieces involved, because there's no real option for it to happen. Now, if I were to take your proposal there, what I would really focus on is, hey, I need some starting pitching. So that would be my first get here, is Dylan Cease. Then I'd look at the prospects here. Marte does nothing for the Padres. They already have some depth options in the outfield. So take him out of the deal. McNeil, unless you're willing to eat the entirety of that salary and move off of Luis Arraez, again, expanding the deal, that's not going to happen. Scratch him out of the deal. So you look at what's left. You got Beatty, Mauricio, McGill, Sproat, Gilbert. That's way too much for Dylan Cease. I would look at this deal and I would say, Dylan Cease, okay, so what could I throw in there? I'd want somebody in that 10 to 15 value range, and I'd want another guy in the 20 million value range, and then just see how close I could get that deal to being done. Would it include Sproat anyway? I think they would try to hold off on him. Gilbert would be another one I'd try to hold off on, but that might be the ask if you're the San Diego Padres. Master Vinman, will the Rangers have a rookie make the opening day roster? They will. Steven, who's playing third on the Red Sox? Good question, Steven. The Red Sox don't even know. As far as I've seen, they still have up in the air where they're defensively going to be aligned. I think their best defense defensively is going to be Bregman over there at third base. Do I think they ultimately go with that option? I don't. I think they're going to be deferential to Rafael Devers and just say, hey, we'll keep him there at the hot corner. Then they'll look at Bregman and say, hey, look, how do you feel about playing first or second base? Preferably, we would like you to play second base. If he says, sure, no problem, then maybe he does then maybe he plays at second base. But I think first base is probably Tristan Casas more than likely, unless Bregman just doesn't work out at second. But he's a shortstop by trade, playing out of position at third base. He's been able to handle it quite well. I think you could do the same at second base. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get these lineups all together. Rafe, man, I was playing MLB The Show and traded Sandy and No Namer for Gunnar and Felix Bautista. What a fleece. Yikes. That's not a good trade, honestly, for either team. I mean, the only side I would really like on that would be the Marlins getting Gunnar Henderson, but they're looking younger pieces. If I were looking more in a real life value for those two. Alrighty, let's kind of get into the rest of the highlights that I wanted to get into today. We saw an extension between the Diamondbacks and Perdomo, their shortstop, 4 years, $48 million, essentially buying a lot of the RBers out there. The Padres did agree to a minor league deal with Yuli Gurriel. If he does make the Major League roster, he'll be making around $1.25 million. A good get for them if they move off of Luis Arraez. That is a possibility. Padres are looking to shave a little bit of salary. The expectation is Robert Suarez will be the casualty of that salary crunch. Maybe Luis Arraez could be also headed out the door. A little bit of surprise for you guys, a name that you may have heard before. John Means is back in Major League Baseball. He is out right now due to an injury, Tommy John anyway. He will not be back at the earliest until August. That tells you essentially if the Guardians are looking for some depth in their starting pitching after the trade deadline, John Means might be able to provide. But again, I think they're going to handle this one a lot of the way the Rangers did with Tyler Mahle last year. They weren't counting on Mahle for any innings last year. They just wanted to get his feet wet, get him back into the swing of things, and then have a healthy offseason, which is what he did, and come into this season feeling pretty strong. I think that's the hope here for John Means, except the Guardians, I think, are hoping to get a little production out of him. This year, it's only $1 million the first year. There are some buyout language, at least for the second year, but the second year is a club option. So say the injuries just continue for him, I would think that option obviously would be declined. Mark, I agree with you about the Rangers bullpen, but their options, and Bruce Bochy is a master of managing a bullpen. Feel very good. Texas will be okay till the trade deadline. I agree with you there. I just would feel more comfortable going into a postseason with a more proven option. To me, my favorite closer the Rangers have had, besides maybe John Wetland back in the late 90s and so forth, was probably Joe Nathan. I like Neftali Feliz, but every time he was out there, I just didn't quite feel as safe with the lead anyway as I did with Joe Nathan. I would love for the Rangers to get that equivalent on the market right now, and they just haven't been willing to spend the money to do so. I think that would be kind of the finishing piece of this team right now. But, as far as the pieces that they have back there, I'll agree with you. They have a ton, and I mean a ton, of options with that Rangers bullpen this year. They have several non-roster invitees that I think are actually a good bet to make the bullpen this year. They're going to have plenty of depth. The question is, how do they manage that depth? And how do they keep it all on the roster, especially considering the options, the minor leagues, all that kind of thing, and to keep it from being poached from other teams. Not saying that these options are great options compared to other teams. For instance, the Dodgers, I don't think they're going to be poaching any of the Rangers relievers at the moment because their bullpen is probably the best in the business. But bullpens, like I said, are very mercurial. 1 year they're great, 1 year not so much. So, we'll see how these bullpens ultimately work out, especially for Texas. I think there's a lot more options at least, but fewer solutions, fewer answers. Until we have those answers, I'm still going to hold back judgment on what the Rangers bullpen looks like because they still don't have a closer, in my opinion. Hank, Rangers winning it all? Possibly. Let's get Bauer. I know it's a new era. Why not? He was found innocent. I get it. Bauer just hasn't pitched to a major leaguers in 4+ years now. There's no way he's coming back. There's just the PR nightmare that a front office would have to deal with in order to get him back on the field. I think that headache alone wouldn't be worth it, especially considering he hasn't thrown a pitch to a major leaguer, or in a major league game anyway, in 4+ years, almost 5 years now. He's not exactly the same pitcher as he once was either. And when I can't guarantee that performance, why am I welcoming that type of a headache as far as the off-the-field concerns when I have no idea how effective he's going to be on the field? Now, do I still think he'd be a good starting pitcher? I do. I just don't think there's any reasonable way a general manager could look at Trevor Bauer and say, yep, that's the guy I'm going to trust bringing in this organization, even given the off-the-field issues, because I know he's going to provide me X, Y, and Z on the mound. And with Bauer, you just can't really count on that. Rafe, Luke Jackson any good or just a guy who can pitch? I think it's more of a jag, honestly, at this point. A guy that's had some good track record, but off of a down year. I think they're hoping for a little bit of a bounce back here. But I don't think that the contract is anything that the Rangers are worried about, even if they have to cut him before the opening day, or at least designate him for assignment, whatever they ultimately have to do. But as far as the way the Rangers have set up their bullpen, they have plenty of options out there. I think that's pretty much the majority of the things. The last option, the one last thing I do want to mention is that the Chicago Cubs added to their depth in their starting staff. signing to a minor league deal Chris Flexen as well. So a lot of minor league deals out there today, a couple of bigger ones, and then of course the big injury to Frankie Montas for the Mets. We'll see if they ultimately go down the trade route to fill that hole in the rotation. All right, now the moment you guys have been waiting for, the next installment of our 2025 season preview series. Tonight's team is the Kansas City Royals. So without further ado, let's get it started. Welcome into the 2025 MLB season preview show for the Kansas City Royals. They did a couple of moves this offseason that really changed the fortune of this offense and how I view them. I think this is a team that is on the rise and will be competing in the AL Central for the crown. So without further ado, let's dig into their roster. All right, looking at their numbers from last year, just kind of look at their overall talent here. Salvador Perez behind the plate, of course. Pasquantino, Massey, Bobby Witt Jr., of course. Needs no introduction there. But you can kind of see how their numbers offensively, they had one really great player, Bobby Witt Jr., at 9.4 WAR. In case you're wondering, that's an MVP level WAR. I think he finished second in the MVP voting last year. Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, All-Star. He was a great performer last year. But where's the rest of the offense coming from? Sal Perez isn't exactly doing much for you anymore, only at 2.5 WAR, and a lot of that comes from behind the plate. So how much offense are you really getting out of the rest of this lineup? And that's why I think they made the move early on this offseason to bring in Jonathan India. They also brought in a couple other guys with back into that bullpen as well. But looking at this team, this is a team that needed a jolt offensively. They did a good job spending last year. Second highest spending team in free agency in 2024. I'd really like to see what they're going to do here in 2025 with the addition of Jonathan India and the additions to that bullpen. So let's look at their team this year. Looking at their depth chart, Fangraphs here is kind of showing us what they've got. Let me get rid of these ads for you guys. Looking at their expectations, look at the WAR here. 6.9 for Bobby Witt. I think they're a little bit low. I'm expecting that to be a little bit higher. But look how many more other guys they think are going to have about a 2 WAR season. We'll start at the top. Jonathan India is their quote-unquote DH. Bobby Witt, Pasquantino, Sal Perez. Not a bad 1 through 4. Massey leaves a little bit to be desired. Going to be a little bit of a platoon. Hunter Renfroe, of course, is your right fielder. MJ Melendez has seen his star dwindle anyway with the Kansas City Royals. Garcia at third base and Isbell anyway in center. Their bench, they're going to have, it looks like they're projecting to have Nelson Velasquez, Darian Blanco, Nick Lofton, and Freddie Furman. Not some bad options there, but I think they're still missing another impact batter. Now, are they ever going to be a player in the top end of free agency for an Alex Bregman or anybody like that? Probably not. So not reasonable to really expect. But could they be in there for a player like Anthony Santander? I think that would be a type of player that could actually fit within their budget and still give them a really nice bang for their buck, return on their investment for what they're doing here. But to me, this offense still needs just a little bit more juice as to what they've already brought in. You thought Salvio was playing first now? He's playing a lot of first now. Yes, he is. Sam, for the San Francisco Giants, do you think the roster is set, as in no more trades prior to the start of the season? I think there'll be a couple of back-of-the-roster trades, as there usually are between most teams. Very few teams are going into the regular season with the roster they have now. They'll have a few guys that ultimately make the roster that weren't expected to out of spring training, and a few guys that, because they made the roster, are going to be left off the roster. So that's when you see some real movement, kind of back-of-the-roster trades. Now, are you going to see any big trades for the San Francisco Giants? Probably not. I think the ship has sailed on them moving Doval. I doubt they move him at this point unless it's a deadline deal. Let's look at the Royals rotation here. I got Cole Ragans, who just got that extension. Hats off to him. I really like what they've done with this rotation. They've got a lot of depth here. Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Michael Lorenzen, and Chris Bubik, and they've got some good depth options as well. Look at that WAR. Cole Ragans, a 3.6. I think there's a chance you could get over 6 this year. Seth Lugo, I think could be an easy 3 this year. Michael Wacha around a 2, gives you a solid 1, 2, 3. Lorenzen in the first half last year was pretty good for Texas. In the second half, not so much, but was a little bit snake bit with injuries in the second half as well. I do like this rotation. Let's look at the bullpen here. They've got some really good options here. A really good closer there, Carlos Estevez. They brought in Lucas Erceg anyway from the Oakland A's last year. Good option for them. Hunter Harvey they made the trade for as well. Chris Stratton had a down year anyway for them last year. 4.5 ERA is what they're expecting from him. But you look at the top end of this bullpen, Estevez, Erceg, Harvey. That's really where this thing is going to be solved for them. Looking at the injured list, Kyle Wright, another starting pitcher type for them. Hopefully he gets back at some point this year. Nobody else of note there for them. In the minor leagues, just kind of looking at their non-roster invitees, a couple of nice depth catchers for them. Nothing really to report outside of that. Nick Prado, of course, has some experience at the major league level for a first base, third base type of option. I mentioned the addition of Jonathan India. The other one that they brought in, as far as a second baseman, an insurance policy, if you will, is Cavan Biggio. I like the option here because if things don't work out, or if there's an injury there for Jonathan India, they at least have somebody to come in and step in real quick and make a difference for them. Now, are they expecting big things out of India? Absolutely. Are they expecting much out of Biggio? Probably not. Even if, in their, best of the best world, if India goes down due to injury, they're not exactly expecting Biggio to come in and light this thing up. But I will say they at least have some good depth options, at least right now. Third base, Groshans, of course, there, as far as a depth option for them. Shortstop, not much to report there. In the outfield, Drew Waters, the former top prospect, is in there. Nobody else really kind of jumps off the map here to me. As far as depth in the minors for their starting pitching, they had a couple of guys that kind of draw your eye there. Alec Marsh is one of them. Lacey is another one. In the bullpen, not too many options that catch my eye there. So as far as their rotation, their lineup, their bullpen, their bench, everything kind of lines up with what this projection is here. I don't see too many pieces going into and out of this team based off of a great spring training. I think their rotation is pretty much set. I think their bullpen is pretty much set as well. This bench could be moved around a little bit, I think. But by and large, I think their lineup is going to be pretty much what we see right here. Absolutely, Sam. Glad I could answer your question there. Mark, funny thought. Say Luke Jackson and Barlow each save 10 games or 12 games for Texas. Till Teodo comes up in late July and just dominates, saving 18 to 20 games. Texas bullpen save 45 out of 55 and win 90. If you're asking for a projection of what this bullpen is going to look like, I think the first guy that's going to get a crack at it is Chris Martin. I think there's a chance Barlow, if he has a great spring, maybe he gets in a middle relief option at first and then develops into a closer. I think there are options within the camp of there that, like a Mark Church, if he has a great, and I mean a lights-out, dominant spring training, I think they'll still go with a veteran. And then if that veteran has a bad start or a bad start to the year anyway, I think they could make a quick change there and solve their issues in the bullpen. But again, that's why I advocate for the Rangers going after a quote-unquote Joe Nathan type of closer for them. They would really benefit from having that stability in that role. But to kind of give you a breakdown as far as saves, I'd say Josh Sborz, when he comes back, will probably save you 5 or 8 games. I think there's a good chance of that happening. I think you'll have one of these guys like Teodo, Marsh, Alstrom, some of those minor league pitchers come up and actually make a difference for you. I think you're looking anywhere between 10 to 20 saves combined for all those guys. As far as the rest of the the rest of the options in the bullpen, the Robert Garcias of the world, the Luke Jacksons of the world, I think best case scenario for the Rangers, if they're having a good year, has say 5 to 10 of those saves come out of that other category anyway for the bullpen. So to kind of finish up there, 45 out of 55, that's not a great save percentage. 90 wins, though, I think that's fairly reasonable with what the Texas Rangers currently have assembled. But we'll have to see how this thing all comes together. Rafe, when in the world did IFK join the Pirates? I think it was in a trade anyway last year, if I remember correctly. Alrighty, let's go ahead and look at their prospects, just kind of give you an idea of what we're working with. In 2025, they had some good growth, or 2024, they had some very good growth as far as their prospects. They only had one top 100 guy last year. They had him around 86-ish. That was Blake Mitchell. He's elevated to number 48. Obviously, a lot of graduations in front of him. But he had a decent year last year for the Royals. Then they, of course, got Jason there and Carter. Two nice options for them. But as far as the depth here in the prospect pool here, I think this is a team that's a little bit leaner on prospects than some of the others. They don't have the same cachet as a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, the New York Yankees, if they're trying to sign guys for the bare minimum at $10,000 in that international signing period. So something to kind of keep an eye on here with that Royals team is how they continue to develop and draft talent. Do they draft college-ready players ready to immediately make an impact and keep this thing going and stay competitive in that division? Or do they take the long approach and say, hey, this ain't it, this ain't the time to push our chips to the center, even though we have a very veteran team? Let's keep our team set before we worry about investing in this team further in financial resources and just kind of have proof of concept anyway. Show that they, that they're a good enough team to really warrant that type of investment there. But that's just something to kind of keep an eye on as well. Wins of the offseason, first and foremost for me, have got to be Carlos Estevez and Jonathan India, both very equal there as far as the signings there. Love both of those for the Royals. I think they'll pay huge dividends. I think this is a team, let's look at their standings last year for the Royals. They finished in the second wild card anyway with 86 wins, tied for the second wild card with the Tigers. Tigers got the third wild card. Mariners were just outside of this picture here. But looking at these the teams that made it last year, I think the Yankees have a good chance to either win the division or take a wild card spot. Guardians, I think, are in that same boat, so that's 2 playoff spots taken up. I think the Astros, I think, are going to be right there with the Rangers for winning the division or getting a wild card spot, so that's 3. Then you go to their wild card, or the wild card in the American League. If the Orioles don't add a starter here, I have serious questions about this team going forward. Royals, I think they did a nice job this offseason to at least maintain their floor of at least kind of that 86 win threshold. I think this is a team that if they get the production that they're hoping for out of India, could see this win total balloon to say 88, 89 wins. If Estevez closes the games they're hoping he does this year that they had issues with last, then I think that win total goes up from, say, an 89 win total to, say, a 91 win total, 92 win total, somewhere in there that would put them right at the top of their division with the Guardians and Tigers. As far as the rest of the teams here, the Tigers, I think, are a good chance to make the wild card spot. The Mariners, as I mentioned, if they add a bat, are going to be in that position. Red Sox, I think, are going to be a team that's going to be in October this year, and the Texas Rangers, I think, are going to be in October as well. I think there's some real chance that the Orioles don't make it because there are issues in that starting pitching staff. They're going to have to address that at some point during the year. We'll see which direction they ultimately choose to go. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you are new here. Follow us on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Royals had a really good offseason, just a matter of if they did enough. I'll agree that they did a lot last year. That was a great offseason for them. This year, I think they left a lot of meat on the bone. And, time will tell as far as to see how this team does. But I think they've done some really shrewd moves this offseason. I think they really spent a lot last year and weren't willing to go quite to that level of spending again this year as far as new dollars on their payroll. Because, again, they're still paying the deals that they signed last year. So this is not a team that's going to be investing heavily with their resources anyway. So kind of keep that in mind as well. Alrighty, mistakes of the offseason. I think this is a team that could have done a little bit more with that lineup. Like I said, I think this is a team that needs another proven offensive option and quote-unquote impact bat as far as I'm concerned. That's their, quote, missed opportunity. As far as a mistake, the Jonathan India trade, they did give up a pretty penny for him. Not as much as, say, some expected to, but I think they gave up enough here to where if things don't work out, just the increased playing time, just change of scenery, whatever the case may be, whatever the reason is that it doesn't work out, that I think could be their mistake, if you will. Do I think it's nearly as bad as some of the other mistakes we've seen this offseason? No. I think by and large, most front offices are pretty smart with how they handle these situations. And we'll have to see how the Royals do theirs. As far as payroll, let's look at what their payroll is going to look like. Top end payroll, you're still looking Bobby Witt with that extension. Not going to really get into the 30s anyway until 2028, so he's making pittance right now, but his AAV certainly counts towards that luxury tax threshold. Salvador Perez is going to be making $22 million this year. He's got a club option for next year as well, so unless he retires at 35, 36 years old, he'll probably remain with the Royals through the length of this contract with that option being picked up. I think they'll be more than happy to give him that $13 million option and just accept the deal and just move forward with him from there. Michael Wacha is making $18 million this year, $18 million next year, $14 the year after that, and an option Club option after that. I think they're hoping for a little bit better return on their investment than what they got last year, and I think they'll get it. I think overall it was a good signing, but that's a lot of money for that Royals team. They want more bang for their buck than what they got last year. Seth Lugo, great bang for their buck, only $15 million this year, has a player option for next year. I think there's a good chance he probably takes it if he gets injured this year. If he doesn't get injured, I think he will decline that option and try to get a multi-year deal in free agency. Carlos Estevez they signed has an $11.1 million cap hit, or as far as the average annual value anyway. 10 this year, 10 the following year, with 13 million is a club option in the final year. They're going to have a pretty good bullpen, that's for sure. They're going to make sure they lock up the games they're supposed to be winning here. But look at all these guys that are pre-ARB or ARB level 1, 2, or 3. A lot of talent here that's still pre-arbitration for them. But looking at their luxury tax here, that's $170 million for the Royals. That's a lot of money for them to be able to be spending right now. So hats off to the Royals for investing in this team. My question marks for them are, look at the years after that. 80, 70, 49, 49, 50. Not a whole lot of money going forward. So they do have flexibility to add some long-term here. So kind of keep that in mind as well. But 170 for the Royals is a lot of money for them. So hats off to them for investing in this team, absolutely. And hopefully that investment will be rewarded. Master Vinman, besides the White Sox, the AL Central looks pretty competitive. You think 90 wins can win the division this year? No, I actually think it's going to take a hair more than that. I think we're probably looking 95 wins this year, wins the division. I think there's a good chance maybe 94, 93 wins, but I think you're going to have to guarantee yourself 90 wins this year. I think it's going to take closer to 95 in a very difficult AL Central race. Okay. We talked a lot about their payroll, what holes are left on this roster. Like I said, I think they could really use another impact bat. Let's do one trade for them. Say they needed to make an impact bat. Remember, they don't have a lot of spending money to use. So if they're going to go after somebody, they're either A, going to have to get it at a low-cost option, or B, get somebody else to pay down a little bit of the salary. So, for instance, Vlad Guerrero Jr., as sexy as that name would be for the Royals, to really make them a proven option anyway as a postseason contender, if you will, I think they're not going to be able to afford him even if they tried. So what are some more realistic options that they could try to improve this offense? Obviously, you could go to St. Louis, not too far away, and try to bring in Nolan Arenado. That's one guy that you could try to bring in. At the trade deadline, if things aren't working out in Chicago, maybe you revisit the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes there. But I think there are other options that they can go to. For instance, the Los Angeles Angels, I think, have a player that they could really utilize here. Let me pull up the Angels here. See if I spot him. Rengifo, very low salary, but he's a player that could make a big impact on a team like the Royals, because I think he'd be a Swiss Army knife for this team. So what is his value? 1 year for Rengifo, 11.9. Royals can afford that kind of a package. So what would be around 11.9 for them? Well, you get down to Freddie Fermin, the catcher. Carter Jansen, another top catcher for them. I think they'll go a little bit cheaper here. If I'm the Angels, I'm playing the long game, so I would want Randall Ricardo as the centerpiece of this deal. I need about another 4 as far as value. Ramirez is a little bit pricey here. David Shields. There we go. That's a good starting pitcher at 18 years old. That's a pretty good deal there. Let's validate it and post it to the trade board. So you bring in Luis Rengifo, kind of fits the mold of the Jonathan India type of a player that I think will get very similar playing time to Jonathan India as well. Speed on the base paths, contact rates, plays solid defense no matter where he is on the diamond. Rengifo will be a nice addition for that Royals team. He just seems like the type of Royals player that you don't hear a lot about, but makes a difference in the game. So I think that type of decision here would be a good one. And for the Angels, they offload a veteran piece who's really demonstrated his value very strongly. You get a couple of long-term assets there going forward. Lottery tickets for sure, but they still are good ones. And I think this would be the type of a trade we could see the Royals making in this trade climate right now. But as far as the Royals go, I don't think they're going to do any big shakeups like a Kyle Tucker or anything like that. I think they're looking more in this range if they decide to go the trade route at some point this year. The quote-unquote impact bat, I think this would be a different type of impact as far as what he brings to the table. So just kind of keep that in mind with the Royals as well. The Royals need to go trade for Robert. Robert Suarez, Luis Robert, maybe. They could use an offensive punch out there. I think that would be a good option. His price can't be too high. Rafe, White Sox could be the wish version of Orioles. Got some promising youth that could be stars in a few years. Doubt they make splashes and become contenders, but could make something happen. I think the White Sox are just trying to use this as a development year more than anything else, just seeing where their team stands. And ultimately, this is not going to be a very competitive team. Let's see here. Heel. Carlos Baerga says there's still a chance Nolan Arenado will accept a trade to the Astros. I'm sure he'd be willing to accept one now. The question is, are the Astros still willing to do the trade? Since the moves that they've made have brought in Christian Walker, they're looking for primarily an outfielder. Maybe he still fits if you horseshoe this or shoehorn this thing in and try to make this thing work. But ultimately, I just don't think it will. I think the best option for them is just to kind of bring in a proven option for the outfield, Alex Verdugo type of a player, somebody along those lines as well. The Luis Robert. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that trade since you mentioned that one. For the Royals, pull them up here. For the White Sox, we'll start on the White Sox side of things just to kind of see what his value is. So that's a net positive value. That's good. His value is around 17. Oh, pardon me. Long one. Around 17.5. So if we're looking at the Royals, what could they give up that's around there? You're wanting a decent piece, a kind of, quote, headliner piece for this deal. Somebody who can really build this trade around. So Mitchell could be that guy, but I think he's too valuable. So you come down here. Carter Jansen could be the headliner of this deal. In fact, I think I will do that. I'll kind of make it a co-headliner. Ricardo and Jansen in exchange for Robert. And then I think they might do, say, the White Sox eat about, I don't want to eat salary in this deal. I think his salary is fairly reasonable for them to be able to swallow this deal. So I think I'm going to throw ahead and put money on this deal anyway. Say they even put, I don't know, $5 million on this deal going to the Royals, just to kind of help them out a little bit. That way they can get just a pinch more of a prospect back as well. So looking at the Royals, you're looking now at about another $6 or $7 million piece. That puts you in this range. You already got a catcher back, so you're not going to go that route. So you could go, I think Shields makes sense. And Gonzalez makes sense. Let's see how close we are for value. 24, so about a 1.5 over. So for the White Sox, let's look at the majors roster. Maybe there's a cheap bullpen option around 1. That would make some sense. Martin Perez is a starting pitcher. That could be a nice one for them. They just signed Michael Taylor. That could be an option for them. Rojas could be an option for them around the deadline. So any one of those could be a fit for them. So they already have Robert, so they're not going to want an outfielder, so scratch off Taylor. Maybe Rojas is kind of the utility infielder for them. Somewhere around there. Validate and post. Obviously, I don't think this would happen right now, but say around the deadline, I think this is a deal that we could see. Let's see here. Rafe, what do you see Salvi contract being after 2026? Probably his last contract before retirement. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he retired after this current deal. I've seen more than a few articles that have indicated that he's willing to hang up his cleats, but it's going to be out on his terms. So maybe he wants 1, maybe he wants 2 years, but it's going to be completely up to him. But we shall see. All right, what are my expectations for them going into 2025? I think this is a team that's going to be in the top 3 division. I think the bottom 2 are quite easy to figure out. We're looking at the White Sox in the bottom. I think we're looking Twins probably in that 4 spot unless something surprising happens, which has happened in the past. But I think this is a team that's going to be competing in that top 3. Now, where do they finish? As currently constructed, I would say this is a better team. They're still kind of in that wild card window to me, though. I think they're more of a top-end wild card, 90-ish win team that could go further, but I don't think they're necessarily going to the World Series or going to fool anybody to thinking that they have a World Series competitive type of team. I think they're a very good roster, but I think they're missing the top end talent of a lot of the better teams out there. I still think they're going to get the job done, and they'll surprise some of us during the regular season. But they're a good team, a well built team that I think is still going to be poised for another wild card run more than anything else. So I'll go ahead and put them as, I'll say they finished second in the division, and just say the Royals, while they're a good pitching staff and had some good options at the top of this lineup, that the depth really isn't there for either one, and solving those issues would be paramount for them for their future success. As far as what kind of damage do I think they could do in the postseason, I think best case scenario they win around, but I don't think they're going on to the ALCS. I don't think they're going on to the World Series. All in all, though, I still think it's going to be a good year for them. Graham, do you see some bigger trades going down, as there are some well-known and at least some higher arms now down? Montas with the Mets, yes, that's kind of what we led our show with, the injury for Frankie Montas. But as far as the trade speculation here, I don't think we're going to see anything huge. Huge being something like multi-team deal with 8 players in it. Now we might see kind of the headlining kind of grabbing deal where we see like sorry, my mind just went blank anyway. Lost my train of thought. Now I got my train of thought back. Okay. As far as the injuries go, I think we'll see some options that fill these types of moves. As far as bigger trades, I think the biggest you're going to see is like a 1-for-3 type of a trade, or a 2-for-3 type of a trade. You're not going to see like an 8 prospect deal or something along those lines. For instance, the Frankie Montas injury that with the Mets, we know that they were going to need a number 1 starter for them, at least going into October. I still think this is a good team with a rotation, when healthy, should at least be able to win during the 162. However, once you get to October, that's when the issues really percolate here for me, and that's where I think it's going to be the downfall of the Mets, unless they add some starting pitching, which I think they will. Brain had a Windows update. It's been a long one, my friend. I woke up very early this morning. I got to wake up very early again here in about 5-6 hours here. I'm running on fumes here. I was also meeting with Stanton, looking doubtful to start the season. Yes, but I think they have some in-house options there in New York to be able to fill his shoes. Kind of go with more of a depth approach there. Cabrera, others, LeMahieu might be given his final, hurrah. I know Joel Sherman had a nice article out there today, basically saying it's third down and long for him in his career, and just seeing if he can stay in the majors after this year and show that he has some productivity for the Yankees this year. Heel Jackson Holiday to the Mets for Yuri Perez. What do I think? That's a big trade. I probably wouldn't do it if I was the Orioles. I think Yuri Perez is a great future, but I think you're looking for more of a proven option with a team that looks like it's ready to win now and the next 2 or 3 years. Perez, I think, could be a pitcher that's ready to help you win in the next 2 or 3 years. Right now, I think he's still a very good option, but I don't think he's necessarily a number 1 in a postseason series type of ready. So there's something to kind of keep in mind. But I do like the idea. Kind of a younger, long-term piece for the Marlins, position player, which is what they need. They're looking to move off of some starting pitching, so they would move off of Yuri Perez there. Overall, not a bad deal. I just think it would be a little bit worse for the Orioles in that deal. Yuri was the bright spot in my current Marlins rebuild. Don't trade him. He is a very good piece. I will say that, but this is a team that's looking for its next next window of contention. 4 years in advance. They want 16 to 20-year-old prospects, not the guys that are already at the major league level or close to it at 24, 25. They want the youth and the Marlins team to kind of all come up together at one big wave, like we've seen in the past. They get really good for 1997, then divest very quickly. Very, very good in 2003, divest very quickly. It's just what they do. As far as expectations for the roster, trades, etc., I don't think they'll be in on big pieces like Vlad Guerrero or Kyle Tucker, but I do think they'll be in that mid-market to small-market types of deals. Kind of think for them like the Luis Robert type of deal, Luis Rengifo, those types of deals I think are more likely for a team like the Kansas City Royals. Off-season grade, I'm going to go ahead and give the Royals, I'm going to give them a B+. I just love what they did with their bullpen. I love they didn't really screw themselves over financially by going after something crazy that they don't need. I like that they brought in Jonathan India. I think he'll be the single biggest impact on this team. I think Carlos Estevez will give him a good run for his money, which is why I think this is a good team overall that I think will make some noise once we get to October. Maybe winning one, maybe getting close to the ALCS, but we shall see. As far as growth and surprises, just some surprises that we might not be expecting from this roster. Bobby Witt may put up another 9-WAR season. That would be great. Jonathan India, with the everyday playing time, might see his WAR jump up to, say, 3 or 4. I think that would be a very good surprise. Sal Perez is a little bit of a renaissance at the plate. These other younger pieces on this roster figure it out offensively. All those things are, genuinely possible. Are they likely? Certainly not. I think there's some good options here for them to kind of grow for the future. As far as some of those pieces, I think their rotation is pretty solid. Their prospect pool is starting to get a little bit better, and I'd like them to try to keep that system together, at least for right now. Welcome in, Chester. Appreciate you joining us once again. I honestly cannot understand the Mets thinking not having a recognized ace at the top of your rotation. To me, they are walking a dangerous path. They are, but I think they'll address it. I think they understand the elephant in the room, that they need a high-end closer to really solidify this, a high-end ace anyway to solidify this rotation. To me, they needed a number one. A Framber Valdez is one that I kind of floated out there. If they don't get that extension done there in Houston, maybe they had seen the writing on the wall and said, hey, let's see if we can maximize his value right now. Doesn't look like that's going to be the direction that ultimately happens for the Mets. So it sounds like maybe a Dylan Cease here if you're looking for a deal in the offseason or before the start of before opening day. Now, as we get into the season, then I think their options open up a little bit as far as longer-term deals, like a Pablo Lopez or a Sandy Alcantara. The question is, will they be willing to part with those top prospects that they spend a lot of money on, traded away Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and paid down a lot of their salaries to be able to get this flexibility, and you're going to spend it in this way? That'd be a little bit of a tough one there. Ceiling floor for this team, I'd say ceiling is probably the ALCS. I don't think they get there, but I think that's a goal that they might try to strive for. As far as the floor, I think this team, say is one Bobby Witt Jr. injury away from a 70-win ball club. So I think that's kind of your floor here. It's all going to depend on injury. It's all going to depend on growth for this team as well. But we'll see how things work out. But appreciate you guys joining us this evening. We'll continue our series tomorrow, breaking down all the season team or the 2025 team previews for all 30 teams across Major League Baseball. Tomorrow, not sure who we'll do. I was leaning towards the Giants. Let's go ahead and do the San Francisco Giants. We've already done a couple of teams in that NL West, kind of keep that thing going, and do the San Francisco Giants. Got a lot of Giants fans, so hopefully you guys, if you're Giants fans, check out that video that we'll be doing tomorrow. I'll get some rest anyway tonight. That way I have a lot fresher anyway for the video tomorrow. I get off a lot earlier in the day, so that'll be nice. But appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Royals getting Vladdy, good Lord, that would be more shocking than the Luka trade. No, that would not be more shocking than the Luka trade. There is nothing that I think in baseball that would equal the Luka AD trade, just because I don't think it would ever happen. Say Shohei was traded for Aaron Judge, that would be a pretty dang shocking trade, but I don't think that's happening. Luka AD actually did, and that's something we're going to be talking about for the next 50 years. Graham, I do like your thinking on teams that's balanced and rational. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Try to keep things pretty even keel with these teams. Try not to go too high, too low on them. Because in general, I think that's how baseball works. You're going to have a great week. You're going to have a poor week. And then you're going to have your average week. How good of a team are you on that average week? Do you win 4 games? Do you win 5 games when you're at your best? When you're at your absolute best and you're knocking the cover off the ball and the rotation's going deep into games and your bullpen's rested, maybe there's something, that would be big like that. But we shall see. Rafe, give me that Helsley trade. Maybe we'll see it. Rangers, to me, still are looking for bullpen pieces. We've seen multiple reports out that the Rangers are very active in multiple discussions with relievers, as evidenced by their deals with 2 of them so far in just the last couple days as well. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe, follow us on X at Upside Ascend, and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Y'all have a great evening. We'll be live again, probably around 7-ish tomorrow, maybe a little bit earlier. And if we have some big news later in the evening, of course, we'll cover that for you guys live. We'll have some new content coming out. If you guys want to check out our video that we made yesterday in the morning during the Colorado Rockies team preview video, You guys can get an update in the first 20 minutes, around that 15 to 20-minute mark. Kind of broke down all the changes we're going to be having going here at the Upside, different content that'll be coming out, short videos, long format videos, and even the possibility of an Upside Sports Network kind of a game that we'll go to and just enjoy a baseball game together and just have some fun. So that's something I'm hoping to put together sometime around August. We'll have to see where and when, and just see how feasible this idea of mine really is. But that's something that at least I'm planning for in the future. So be sure to hit that like, subscribe, join us here at the Upside if you're new. Say hi in the chat. Got a very friendly chat out there, so we really appreciate you guys joining us as well. It's a long haul. Teams have the ups and downs, be hot and cold. It's baseball. That's kind of why it's 162 games. I know this is going to kind of rub a lot of people the wrong way. It's an unpopular opinion. Big asterisk. I like the 162 game season. I like the 82 game season in the NBA. You know, I get it. There's rest. I don't care. I still like the game of basketball the way it's being played. Could other things be improved? Absolutely. But changing the schedule, I don't think necessarily solves all the issues that you think it might. Now, the one unpopular opinion that I do have is that the NFL season should be longer. And I'm not talking 18 games. I'm talking significantly longer. So when I say significantly, I'm talking, 20, 25 games, somewhere in there. Because what do you see in all these other leagues? Listen, hear me out. What do you see in all these other leagues? The NHL, you have lines. 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, 4 line. You don't have your star player on the ice every single second of the game. In fact, your best player, at best, may play half the game offensively and defensively. Your goalie, of course, is the only guy that's out there the entirety of the game. So they play a 82-game schedule, and they allow other players on the team to have their moment, to really shine through. Now, yes, quarterbacks have been a big problem over the years, getting competent quarterback play. But here's the thing. Draft and develop and get it right. I mean, you get your big guy there. Of course, he's going to need to come out for a game or two at some point. Your backup had better be able to play and play well. If LeBron James comes out of an NBA game, he doesn't play the full 48 minutes. Somebody else comes in for a couple of minutes here and there, gives him a spell, and produces in that time. In the, what's the other sport that I didn't mention here? We just did the NFL. We talked a little bit about LeBron, we talked about the NHL. We talked a little bit about LeBron. As far as the MLB, Shohei Ohtani being the exception, not the rule. He plays pitching and hitting, but you don't see him go both ways. And even when you are hitting, you still have 8 other guys in the lineup with you that are still hitting. That's why I think the NFL could do something like that to allow more depth on these rosters, to allow quarterbacks to develop by getting in the game. And yes, you're going to see poor quarterback play from time to time. But how is that different from watching college football every single Sunday? How is that different from watching these developmental leagues? Develop them at the NFL level. Why do we need to have Aaron Rodgers for 17 games a year and it's not working out? Let somebody else get in there. I want to see competent quarterback play just like the rest of you guys. But I'm tired of babying these players. And yes, it is a brutal game. Expand the player pool if you're worried about injury. Take some plays off. Send them to the bench. Just like all the rest of the leagues do. It's an unpopular opinion. Will it ever happen? No. But I just think it'd be something I would like to see. I would like to see the backups get their time in the sun. I would like to see teams be less beholden to one specific player on the NFL and stop coddling these players like, oh no, we can't possibly have anything but the best on the field at any given time from a quarterback standpoint. We couldn't possibly put our second string receiver out there. Come on, man. The NFL, there are so many players that play football around the world. Very few of them even get into college. Way fewer of them even get into the developmental leagues out there. And very, very, very few of them get into the NFL. You're telling me you couldn't find a running back that could be comparable to some of the B and C tier running backs we see in the NFL today? You're telling me you couldn't find a right tackle from, say, that just got out of college, a 4-year starter from some smaller university that couldn't at least hold his own for a few downs every single game? We already see a lot of those backups in the games that you don't even notice during the game already. Why are we why are we trying to coddle these players as much as we do? Anyway, just an unpopular opinion that I have that I just think, would be very good for the sport of the NFL if they really wanted to capitalize on money as much as they seem to. I think that'd be one way to really tap into some pocketbooks there and expand that NFL season. I know it's a great product, but there's no reason why we should be watching, Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow play every snap of every game for their team. At a certain point, where's your team building? Where's your depth? All these other leagues go through those types of things. The NFL does not. Maybe that's what makes them unique, but like I said, it's an unpopular opinion, and it's never going to happen. All right. I agree. Longer NFL season, you see what both teams are made of and how organizations operate under more pressure. I agree with you there, Graham. Rafe, I would rage too much if backups played more. Please no. I get you. I know. For me, I don't like seeing poor play. I get it. I just think that it would show a lot more of the development, the upside, if you will. I like seeing smart front offices, smart decisions being made. So instead of allowing some rookie to be on the back end of your roster rather than a competent backup at the quarterback spot, that'd be something that could change with team building, roster construction, those kinds of things. You have a 53-man roster. Maybe your roster expands to, say, the full 90 that you keep during the off season and so forth, and just go with something along those lines. Maybe not even 90. Maybe it's just 70, but enough players to get you through those games. And like I said, there's enough money in the NFL where they could certainly afford it if they really wanted it to. And they're literally playing games with money anyway right now with the salary cap. So why are we even worried about it? I just think that would be one way to, be a good change for me. I'd like to see some development here, recognizing that my star player doesn't need to be on the field every second of every play, because I need to show, the team how good we actually are, the depth of our organization. Just something I think would be a cool idea. But again, unpopular opinion, never going to happen. We'll see. All right, but to kind of wrap up our video tonight, we'll be live again tomorrow night, probably around 6, 7 o'clock, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll be doing the San Francisco Giants 2025 season preview. This has been your Kansas City Royals 2025 season preview. We'll have some of the shorter, condensed versions of our lives that we do coming out in the next couple of weeks, kind of getting everybody ready for the start of the season, and should be a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys joining us. Appreciate all the support you guys have given us. Thank you for the super chats, the likes, the hearts, everything. I saw a few of those likes on the video, but thank you guys for all the support you guys give us. And we'll be live again 6 or 7 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, evening. We'll see you guys then. Stay safe out there, everybody.